Welcome to the Golden State with Mates post-game live, the very first one, and what a time to do it after the Warriors record a 35-point blowout victory over the Portland Trail Blazers to kick off their season at Moda Center, 139-104. Come in and share your comments. I'll read them out live on the episode here, but my goodness, what a start for the Warriors. It was a very ugly first quarter, but those final three periods were finally what we wanted to see after the preseason where Golden State had gone 6-0. The first quarter, the form certainly didn't translate. 21 apiece, an ugly start offensively. Everything looked a bit rushed. I didn't actually mind some of the looks that the Warriors were getting in the opening period, but they just couldn't make anything. They could not hit anything. Few turnovers here and there, but yeah, it was an ugly start. But the final three quarters, the Warriors end up outscoring the Trailblazers 118-83, and just a complete demolition job in the end. And I actually thought this game was going to be somewhat close. I looked at the Trailblazers roster and thought, you know what, there's some talent there. And not wanting to read too much into Golden State's preseason form, we know that, opposition teams don't play their best guys, rest some guys. Not much you can take away from the last start victory against the Lakers, where they won by 58, obviously. But this final three quarters was simply incredible, really. And you couldn't have asked for much more. Yes, we all came into it thinking, yeah, the Warriors should win this game. They're pretty significant favorites. I think they went in, 6.5-point favorites in this one. But to dominate in the final three quarters the way they did, you couldn't have asked for much more. Now, were the Trailblazers really disappointing? Yeah, they were. Are they probably going to finish bottom of the Western Conference this season? Yeah, they probably will. But a 35-point win against any NBA team, particularly when they're playing their main guys, can't be, you got to take that for what it's worth. And that's a difficult thing to achieve. And so the Warriors should be really proud of the way they played in the final three quarters. And us as fans, whenever you get a blowout victory like that, particularly given how Golden State, how their season went last season with so many close games, so many clutch games. I think they showed on the broadcast what was 48 clutch games last season. To get a blowout victory against anyone is fantastic. Doesn't matter who it's against, particularly on the road, because the Warriors not only had so many clutch games, but were also very, very disappointing in some of those clutch games as well, and blew a lot of games that they should have won, which would have probably changed the outcome of their season, having missed the playoffs and losing in the play-in tournament, obviously, against the Sacramento Kings. So an unbelievably good last three quarters. And I think going into it, for me, if you watched the season preview that I did with Reese Coons back a few days ago, it was really going to come down to the team styles for me. Could the Warriors negate the impact of Portland's big men in DeAndre Ayton and Donovan Clingan? And therefore, could they get out, run in transition, and create a fast-paced game where their differential in three-point shooting was going to prove too much? And that's exactly how it played out. I thought the combination of Draymond Green, Trace Jackson-Davis, Kevon Looney were excellent, absolutely fantastic. And, what did DeAndre Ayton do? DeAndre Ayton and Donovan Clingan. I think Ayton had 10 points in the end. I'm just checking here now. Ayton had 10 points, 5 of 12 shooting. Clingan in his debut, 2 points, 1 of 2 shooting. And you're not going to expect too much from a rookie. I just got the first comment there from Arzu, who says, great win, Warriors. If you've got any more thoughts, Arzu, what did you like? What did you not like? Very, very little not to like, I would have thought, from this one. But we'll get into maybe a few things that could be worked on or improved upon going forward. But yeah, back to the Ayton and Clingan point. They just had no impact. They had no impact. They not only had no impact, they were thoroughly outplayed by Trace Jackson-Davis, primarily, who was absolutely fantastic. Arzu says Andrew Wiggins played a good opening, just like Steve Kerr said, 20 points a game player. I want to apologize to Steve a little bit here. He said multiple times during the preseason, before that in training camp, said multiple times that, hey, Wiggs is a 20-point per game player. He's going to be our second leading scorer this season. And I just I just blew it off and thought, really, like if we're relying on Wiggs to be our second guy, I'm not sure where that can lead this team because Wiggs has never been the second guy for the Warriors, not consistently anyway, not throughout the course of the season. I'll continue to reiterate that 2021-22 championship season where he was an all-star, he was still only the fourth leading scorer on the Warriors, right behind Steph, Clay, and Jordan Poole. So we've never actually really seen Wiggs as the second guy, and I had some concerns about that, but he was one of the big things to emerge from this game because despite only playing in the final two preseason games, and I thought, well, geez, a bit nervous about how he could start the season based on that and the fact that he'd missed the first 4 games and much of training camp with an illness, that made me nervous, right, on how Andrew Wiggins was going to start. But he could not have been any more impressive in this game. Yes, albeit against a lesser opponent, no doubt, in the Trailblazers, but you've still got to hit shots, right? I don't care if there's no defense out there. You're lining up these threes, you got to knock them down. And he went 4 of 7 from beyond the arc, finished the game 20 points, 8 of 15 shooting. I thought he was unbelievably good. And it's funny how this game was, in a couple of these performances, was a bit of an eerily similar production to what we saw 3 years ago now. Season opener on the road against the Los Angeles Lakers. Much more competitive game, no doubt, where Steph had a triple-double in that game. And in this one, he nearly goes for a triple-double as well. 17, 9, and 10. Only plays 25 minutes. Doesn't have to play at all in the fourth quarter. Ends up being stranded 1 rebound short. And so you would like the performance from this game to marry up to what we saw in the 2021-22 championship season where Steph, near triple-double today, goes for a triple-double in that 2021-22 season opener. Warriors end up winning the championship that season. Will that happen again? Unlikely, but it's a nice start nonetheless. And Steph wasn't the only one throwing it back to 21-22. Wiggs, absolutely unbelievable. Drew says, it's great to see you on live, mate. Wishing you all the luck and great win, Warriors. Thank you very much, Drew. Much appreciated. Let's hope we can continue to do this throughout the regular season, and particularly after Warrior wins. There's no doubt there's going to be some disappointing post-game lives after Warrior losses. But for now, let's just enjoy the win that the Warriors had, 35 points, because it was looking, I mean, a lot of people overreacting early on social media after that first quarter where the Warriors, 2 of 12 from three-point range, couldn't hit anything. Again, as I said at the start, they got some good open looks, I thought, and there's going to be some concerns with that starting lineup, which we can get into in terms of Steph, Wiggs, JK, Draymond, TJD, and the spacing there, and whether those guys can hit shots together as a starting unit. But I mean, you win the game by 35. I don't think that starting unit was great necessarily. That wasn't the difference in the game. Again, it was really the Warrior bench, I think, that was the difference. 7 guys scoring at least 10 points. 13 of the 14 guys got on the scoreboard, except for Brandon Pajemski, who instead of scoring the ball just was a lazy plus 36 game high in the end. So just production all across the Warrior roster, which is what we've seen in preseason. Like this was, again, aside from a pretty forgettable first quarter, this was an eerily similar, performance to what we've seen from the team across the course of preseason. And there was some nerves on whether that was going to translate based on, coming up against teams that are going to take it a lot more seriously, obviously, than what preseason is. But again, aside from that first quarter, it was a perfect display from the Warriors. Like they start out 2 of 12. They end up finishing 20 of 48, 41% from three-point range, which, I mean, they got 139 points in this game. And it wasn't as if they shot historically well from three-point range, like we saw with the Celtics on opening night, where they should have broken the record for most threes, had 28 with 9 minutes to go, and then just couldn't hit water if they fell out of a boat in the last 9 minutes, missed their last 12 or 13 three-point attempts. The Warriors in this game, 20 of 48, 41.7%. That is good. Anytime you're over 40% is great, but it's not unbelievable. And so the fact that you were able to get 139 points on the board without shooting unbelievably well from three-point range, very well, yes, but not unbelievably well, and to put up 118 points in the final 3 quarters. I mean, I just thought from the outset, even though the first quarter was disappointing and it was a little bit frantic, I understand that, and the shots weren't falling, but I still felt the game was on our terms a little bit. Well, not even a little bit, like a lot. I just felt like the pace of the game, the Warriors needed to make this a fast pace, up and down the floor, run and gun style, rather than, again, as I said in the preview episode, Portland trying to slow it down into more of a half-court offense, letting their big men get involved a little bit more. And I just don't think the Warriors allowed that at any point. Even in the first quarter where the Warriors were struggling offensively, they still did a good job of making sure that the likes of Ayton and Klingon didn't really get it going. Portland, I thought, hit some tough shots as well in the first quarter. I thought the Warriors' defense, as good as the offense was, putting up 139 points, keeping Portland to under 40% shooting from the floor, I thought the Warrior defense was equally as good, right? Especially against some of Portland's main guys who were talented. Like DeAndre Ayton, last time he played the Warriors, it was one of the final games of the regular season. He put up like 25 and 11. Like, he's a talented player, and he had no impact in this game. Jeremy Grant hit a few shots, but, never really turned the game in any way. Anthony Simons, what did he finish? Just checking here. He was 5 of 12, 2 of 7. No one really got to go. Jeremy Grant was 6 of 18 in the end. Scoot Henderson, 7 of 18. No one from Portland got it going. And you got to give the Warrior defense some credit, keeping the Trailblazers to under 40% from the floor, 23.5% from three-point range, 8 of 34. I said before the game, again, in the preview episode with Reese, I said the three-point differential is what could decide this game. And guess what? The Warriors were plus 36, 12 more threes in this game, plus 36 from beyond the arc, and they win the game by 35. It's as simple as that. That was always going to be the method for Golden State if they could get the game on their terms, and they did. They simply did, and the Trailblazers, as a result, did not stand a chance. And they're not going to be the only team that fall victim to the Warriors playing fast, being a heavy three-point shooting team, and simply winning the game by that means. Like, this is basketball, NBA basketball in 2024 for you. We saw what the Celtics did to the Knicks on opening night. The Knicks are a very, very good team, and they just could not keep up with. Like, I think at one point they said the Knicks were shooting like 60% from the floor, and they were down by over 20. They could not keep up with the three-point shooting volume of the Boston Celtics, and the Warriors are trying to play in a very similar manner. Now, are they going to be as good as the Boston Celtics? I don't think so. That's certainly not in that realm of team, but they are going to be, as I've said, based on the preseason, they should be able to stack up a lot of wins based on their depth and based on the way that they are playing and the offense that they are running, which I think has been revolutionized a bit by the fact they've brought in, Buddy Hield, DeAnthony Melton, and probably most notably, Terry Stotts as an assistant coach, bringing a different dimension to the Warriors. And again, 118 points in the final three quarters. We're just getting whatever they wanted. And it was really like, it's the old adage, defense leads to offense, right? And the Warriors were getting so many looks, not just from three, but at the basket. DeAnthony Melton a couple of times, his defense individually, unbelievable. Him late in the third quarter a couple of times, just getting in passing lanes and getting easy dunks on the other end. It's as simple as that. Dublin Marquez, great win. It's nice not to have to worry about Steph and Clay being hot. So many other shooters. Yeah, it's the depth of this Warrior roster, and it's one of my concerns leading out of this game. If I'm going to go into things that I disliked from this game, hugely controversial decision, I would suggest. Well, at the time. Now, after you win a game by 35, it's nothing is really controversial because you've won the game by 35, and that's all that matters at the end. But hugely controversial at the time, the Warrior rotation. So starting five, as I mentioned, and then I'm pretty sure GP2 was the first one off the bench. It was like GP2 and Buddy Hield. Then it was Pods and Loon. So they were the first four guys off the bench. Then we saw DeAnthony Melton as the 10th guy in the rotation. We saw Loon as the 11th, 11 deep in the first quarter. And I'm sitting there. All I can do is laugh at this point at the fact Moses Moody can't get in the rotation, right? Like, what is going on? This guy leads the team in scoring in preseason, gets a new contract extension, 3-year, $39 million deal just days ago, and yet he can't get in the rotation. But then Steve decides, okay, no, I'm going to go 12 deep by the start of the second quarter, and Moses is out there to start the second quarter. 12 deep in the rotation. Now, Has it worked all throughout preseason? Absolutely. Has it worked in this game? Absolutely. Do I think going 12 deep in the rotation is going to work throughout the entirety of a season? No. I think you have to make some hard calls at some point. And Steve has already confirmed, I just checked Twitter before, Steve has already confirmed that he will continue using a 12-man rotation going forward, which is, there is no other team in the league that is doing that. Like, there is literally no other team that is going 12 deep in the rotation, like using 12 guys in the first, not even just the first half, the first 13 minutes of the game. Like, it is unbelievable that Steve is taking that approach. And I think it's simple. Like, he doesn't actually want to make the hard choices because everyone's playing well. And therefore, who are you sitting? It's still a genuine question mark. Like, the entire off-season, preseason, I've said, okay, you got 12 guys. I'd be sitting Loon and GP2. If I just wanted to pick my 10 best guys, I said that on last episode as well. I pick my 10 best guys, and that means Loon and GP2 are out. But who am I to say that Loon and GP2 are the two worst of the 12 after what they showed in this game? Like, GP2, I thought was huge on the defensive end. And I think I'll put my hand up and say, I think his injury concerns over the past 2 seasons have washed away the memory a little bit of how impactful this guy can be. Like, I know he was a huge piece to the 2021-22 championship team. I understand that. But I think the injury concerns, we've kind of put him to one side a little bit. And maybe that's just not fair. Because, again, in this game, he shows his ability on the defensive end. And not just in this game, I've said this statistic multiple times. You go back to last season, the Warriors were still a significantly better team when Gary Payton II was on the floor compared to when he was off the floor. Like, they were. I think they were like +7 or something in net rating when GP2 was on the floor. And so, who am I to say that he shouldn't be in the rotation when he plays like he did? And he was effective on the offensive end as well. Just having a look at what GP2, I think he finished with 8 points, 3 of 4 shooting, 3 assists, 2 steals. Just a classic GP2 game. It doesn't explode off the box score by any means, but just a classic impactful Gary Payton II game where he finishes as a +26 in 14 and a half minutes. Like, it's unbelievable. Double Marches, Warriors have won 4 chips by playing differently. A 12-man rotation may make the difference this year for the Warriors. Possibly. And if that's the case, then fantastic. It's like, you're not going to do that at playoff time. And so, come playoff time, teams will often go 8, 9, maybe really have a top 6 probably. And then 7th, 8th may play like 15 minutes. I don't know. You can just ride the wave here, though. And maybe this is the case for the Warriors during the regular season. You just ride the wave of having 12 blokes who can just all produce. And again, as I said, this was a similar performance to what we saw in the preseason, where the Warriors had 7 guys score at least 10 points. We saw over the final few preseason games, 6, 8, 6, I think, the final 3 games in terms of scorers in double digits. Moses Moody, laughing at the fact that he wasn't used in the top 11 in the rotation, comes out as the 12th man, doesn't faze him whatsoever. Does not faze him whatsoever. He has 15 points off the bench in, what did he have? Just seeing what he played. Yeah, 15 minutes. 5-11 shooting, 3 of 8 from deep. Yeah, just did not faze him whatsoever. And it's a huge credit to him, the fact that he could sit back and in that first quarter see 11 guys go on the court in front of him and think, like, really? It's another season we're having this happen again. But no, it doesn't faze him. He stays ready, comes out. Bit of foul issues there in the first half. Second half, fantastic. Now, maybe was the gas out of the game a little bit, possibly. Drew says, completely agree with Dublin Marge in terms of the 12-man rotation. Yeah, maybe it's a point of difference. It's a point of difference. And you look at the guys that Portland are bringing off the bench where, Chauncey Billups didn't really know what he was doing there in the second half. He was just trying a bit of everything to try and, get things going a little bit. But, they lent on their starters heavily. I mean, Grant played 33, 8 and 31, Avdia 27.5, Simons 32.5. And this is in a blowout game where the game was over by the end of the third quarter. Kamara, I actually like the way Kamara battled against Steph. And this is the other thing, the Warriors put up 139 with Steph Curry going for 17 points. 17 points for Steph, and the Warriors put up 139, 4 of 10 shooting for Steph, 3 of 7 from 3-point range. But credit to Steph. Like the fact that he was still able to impact the game as hugely as he did. And we shouldn't be surprised by that. Like his gravity, his spacing opens up so many things for everyone else. And the one thing that I would take away from this game in terms of the starting lineup, there are a couple of plays early in that third quarter where Kuminga got a dunk from cutting baseline off a Wiggins pass, and that directly came from Steph, basically, and guys just clinging to him, basically. And then the following play, I think Draymond found, or maybe it was TJD found Draymond for a layup. I think it was that combination. Again, off Steph, right? Another Steph hockey assist. And that's the one thing for me is that this starting lineup, you might look at it and think, there's a lack of spacing there. JK goes 0 of 2. Trace isn't going to shoot any threes. We know that. Draymond made his only 3, which is like a contested corner one. I was surprised he took it over Grant. He made it in the second quarter. But the one thing I'll go back to is like maybe Steph Curry's gravity and just the attention that he draws will be enough for the Warriors to still get open looks at the rim, open looks from 3, despite the lack of three-point shooting in the front court. Because like the way I would see it as an NBA defense is that like, okay, you've got JK, Draymond, TJD, 3 at this point non-shooting threats. And if I was an NBA defense, I'd be thinking, okay, well, we're just not going to allow anything at the rim. Like we should just be leaving those guys wide open, letting them take threes every possession, really. And we shouldn't be letting anything at the rim. And yet, again, in that third quarter, I'm seeing back-to-back plays where it's a Kuminga dunk and then it's a Green layup, I think it was, from Jackson Davis. And it's like, hang on, those 3 guys are out there and they're still getting open looks at the rim. Like, how is this possible? And it's all down to Steph. It is literally all down to Steph Curry. And so maybe he's just him individually can be enough to overcome some of those spacing concerns in the starting lineup. And I like what that starting group did defensively. Again, I didn't think it was outstanding, but when you win a game by 35 points, I think you're bound to just continue doing what you're doing. And so that means go back to the same starting lineup. And it means, as a couple of you have already pointed out, stick with a 12-man rotation. Right? Have 11 guys play in the first quarter. Have Moses Moody come in as your 12th man at the start of the second quarter. Stick with it. Whilst you've got a winning formula, yes, you can tinker with things here and there, but you don't want to change anything drastically in terms of your rotation. And so stick with the starting lineup. Could have it been better? Yeah, absolutely. In terms of the dislikes, I actually thought the only guy that didn't play well in this game out of the 14 players the Warriors used, 13 were good to excellent, right? 13 guys. The only player that didn't play well in this game was Jonathan Kuminga. And a lot of overreaction again on social media based on his first quarter and his first half, especially where he had foul trouble. He didn't shoot the ball well. He turned it over multiple times and it was ugly. It was not a good first half. It wasn't a good game, again, from Jonathan Kuminga by any means. But again, let's not overreact. It's one game. Finishes with 10 points, 4 rebounds. So it's not like he, didn't do anything positive. Like he still had some nice plays. He was the one guy, And it's probably, as the game went on, it probably stood out even more that JK wasn't having a great game because all his teammates were having good games, right? And so, again, I don't think Steve's going to overreact to that. It's one disappointing game from JK. Probably could have been, again, he had some nice plays. Wasn't horrifically bad. But again, I wouldn't overreact to it by any means. Gamer F2P says it's just preseason, they say. One getting to the line when Warriors couldn't make a field goal. Come on, man. Can we go? Let's just go back to the start of the game where the Warriors could not make a field goal whatsoever. And I'm assuming, just let me know, Gamer F2P, I'm assuming you mean Kuminga's ability to get to the free throw line. Is that what you're kind of referring to there? Because he did get to the line on six occasions, made 4 of them, and especially got to the free throw line early, where I think the Warriors' first 5 points came from free throws, with Kuminga going 1 of 2. I think Steph went 2 of 2, and then TJD went 2 of 2. The Warriors could not make a field goal. Like, that starting unit did not make a field goal at all in their first stint of nearly 5 minutes of action. Well, in fact, I think it was over 5 minutes, just over 5 minutes, and the Warriors didn't have a field goal to start the game. And then I'm just going to go back to the fact they end up with 139 points. Like, they couldn't have played any worse offensively in that first 5 or 6 minute stretch. And yet they end up with 139 points. It just goes to show you like the power of the 3-point line. Even in a game where, again, the Warriors didn't shoot unbelievably, like historically well from 3-point range. But when they play with the pace they do and get up as many threes as they do, they are capable of doing this, as some other teams around the league are, as we saw with the Celtics on opening night against the Knicks. But yeah, I wouldn't overreact to the Kuminga stuff too much. Yes, he was disappointing. Yes, some of the decision making is still, like, I saw people on social media saying, you know, oh, he still makes rookie mistakes in terms of some of the decision making on offense. You know, a couple of charges that I think Grant drew one, and maybe it was, I don't know if it was Grant the second time or maybe someone else in that first half. 4 turnovers in this game. So yeah, some of the decision making not great. But, I mean, when you win by 35 points, how much can you complain? How much are you going to change things? And JK only plays 19 and a half minutes, and that's the thing. When you've got a 12-man rotation, you just ride with whoever's got it that night. And if a player doesn't have it, bad luck. Like, you're not going to play much. And the Warriors end up playing, I'm just having a look here. So, of the 12-man rotation, everyone played at least 14 minutes, and no one played more than Steph, who played 25 minutes and 4 seconds. So everyone played at least 14, and no one within 20, no one more than 25 and 4 seconds. That is crazy. And as some of you guys say, like, maybe that is the point of difference that the Warriors have, that like they're going to have so many guys to throw at the opposition here that, again, as I said before, if you're Steve, you can pick and choose who you go with. And, you know, if a guy doesn't have it, like Kuminga didn't have it in this one, then you bench those guys and say, you know what, JK, you might be a starter, and most starters around the league are just, you know, shoehorned into playing 30 minutes a night. That's not how we roll. Basically, this team is Steph Curry, maybe Draymond to an extent. I'll bet Draymond only played 20 and a half minutes. So let's not say that JK got benched in this game. It's just he didn't play 25 plus minutes because he didn't need to. He didn't have it, and the Warriors didn't need it anyway because of the overall production they got on the roster. Just an unbelievable performance. You know, Draymond plays 20 and a half. Trace is at 24. I thought Trace was fantastic. I was really, like, after that first game against the Clippers and where he got torched by Zubac a little bit, I was a bit concerned. I didn't think his second and third game of preseason were very good either. His final 3 preseason games, I thought, yeah, okay, this is the two-way impactful presence that we saw in his rookie season, and we saw his capability to be, as I said, a real presence on both ends of the floor. And I thought that was just, you know, this was a continuation of those final 3 preseason games. I thought he was excellent. I'll continue to go back to the passing element that he brings as well. I spoke a couple episodes ago about, you know, you can post him up. You can give the ball to him in a pick and roll situation, and he won't just be diving to the rim. Like, well, yes, he will, but he'll also be looking for the cutters, baseline and stuff. And when you've got Steph Curry as the ball handler in situation and teams are going to throw 2 defenders at Steph, you desperately need a big guy to be able to make decisions out of that role. And that's why Draymond has been so good for the Warriors over the last decade plus. And when you got a guy like TJD who can also make reads off the roll like that, it's pretty difficult to stop as an opposing defense. And, you know, Trace has, I mean, he only gets credited as 2 assists in this one, but he might have had a couple of other hockey assists as well. I don't know, but just his passing was excellent, I thought. And, you know, the Warriors again load up with 38 assists on how many field goals did they end up making? 38 of 48 assists. And, you know, Steph has 10 assists. I mean, how many hockey assists again did he have with, you know, the tic-tac-toe plays where 2 defenders jump at him? I mean, there's not too much negative you can say about this game aside from, you know, some of the Kuminga stuff and questioning I question the 12-man rotation. I'm not saying I dislike it. I'm just questioning whether that is viable and sustainable across the course of a whole season. HR says, "G'day, mate. Hey, how you going? Let me know your thoughts on this game." Yeah, just unbelievable. I mean, very, very few negatives. And I haven't even spoken. I have not even spoken really a word about Buddy Hield. Buddy Hield, 22 points, 15 minutes, 8 of 12 shooting, 5 of 7 from 3-point range. I don't know, just a perfect fit, like a perfect fit, really. And we'll see if he can sustain it across the course for the season, because I think there are a lot of concerns. I had concerns about him coming in to the team after what he'd shown at the end of last season with Philadelphia, where he got like 3 DNPs in the playoffs, right? And he wasn't really a usable piece for them. But again, if the Warriors are going to play this high-paced, high 3-point shooting style, then Buddy Hield just fits perfectly into that. And he's going to be so much more effective playing like this than playing in Philly. I just know he would love playing Golden State compared to Philadelphia, because in Philly, you just sit in the corner, you don't really move, and you let Embiid just do what he does in the post, or you let Maxey have an ISO, right? Like, that's not enjoyable for role players like Buddy Hield, shooters like Buddy Hield. But in this system, you get to run around the floor like he was a maniac out there in this game, running around the floor. Like, one point he made a layup, then he sprinted back on defense, got hustle play, nearly got the steal, but then Draymond, dove on the floor and fouled a guy. Like, I just love the energy that Buddy brought in this game, to be honest. Not just the shooting. Like, the shooting, we know the shooting's going to be there. He's 40+% on nearly 8 3-point attempts per game in his career. We know that's going to be there. Absolutely. No doubt about that. But I just thought, as much as anything, just the energy he brought to the game. The game kind of turned when he got on the floor, because he made a couple of threes. And, I think the Warriors, did they start 0 of 10 or something like that from 3-point range? I know they were 2 of 12 after the first quarter, and their 2 threes, I think, came from Buddy. He had 14 points in the first half, 4 threes. He was electric. And again, he has that much impact in only 15 minutes of play. 14 minutes and 44 seconds of play for Buddy Hield. The way he was impacting the game, the energy he brought, I would have thought he played at least 20. He had to have played at least 20. No, 14 minutes and 44 seconds. HR says, just keep playing, everyone. Injuries will balance out the roster. Yeah, and that's the unique thing that the Warriors have right now. I was looking at a few of the injury reports around the NBA. I think Orlando might have gone into their season opener today. Very good win by them over the Miami Heat. Absolutely smashed them. I think they might have gone in with a full bill of health, no guys on the injury report at all. But other than that, I mean, how many other teams around the league do you see have literally 0 players on the injury report? And the Warriors are in a completely unique situation with that. Albeit, maybe Orlando are also in. But other than that, I'm not sure there's any other team in the league with 0 players on the injury report. So that in itself is unbelievable. And you are right in saying injuries will balance out the roster. It will come a time where there's 2, 3, 4 guys out through injury at any one time, or you're on the second night of it back-to-back and you choose to rest some guys. But, I mean, the fortunate thing about this is if you have a roster where you're playing 12 guys and you're playing, guys but anywhere between 15 and 30 minutes, then you're really not putting a load on anyone. And therefore, I don't really want to see blokes resting on second nights of back-to-back. Maybe Steph. And that is literally it. No other, and this team is reasonably young now. You've got Steph and Draymond, but outside of that, Buddy Hield's 31, Kyle Anderson, what is he, 31 as well, I think. Melton they've brought in is 26. They've got the young guys in Moody, Pajemski, Jackson Davis, Kuminga. GP2's 31. Maybe he's a guy you rest given his injury history. Loon's not playing much anyway, so I don't think he needs to rest. When it comes to second night of back-to-backs, no one should be resting. And that, I guess, is another positive to this 12-man rotation, is that you're not really, guys aren't going to be averaging 30-plus minutes a game necessarily. And therefore, you're not going to have to lean on guys heavily to the point where they get a bit banged up and you're going to have to rest them on second night of back-to-backs or just in the odd game here and there. So that is another major positive to the 12-man rotation. Have we got anything else here? If you've got any other comments, we've been going for nearly 34 minutes here. If you've got any other comments on this game, then let me know. Good to see Lindy Waters the third just do what he does. Comes in the ball game, 8 points, 2 of 2 from 3-point range. Just does what Lindy Waters does. I feel sad for him. He'd be getting rotation minutes for most other teams, and yet he's stuck with Guy Santos as the 13th and the 14th, as the 13th and 14th guys. I did have a bit of a chuckle late in the third quarter when I saw, the scores getting ramped up a little bit and the Warriors are extending out to a near 30-point lead. And I had a bit of a chuckle because I saw Quinton Post, Reece Beekman, and Pat Spencer all in street clothes on the bench. And of course, like those guys are limited to 50 games with Golden State throughout the course of the season, given they're on two-way contracts. When that's the case, if those three guys are either in Santa Cruz or they're in street clothes, as they were in this one, then the Warriors obviously only have their 14-man main roster, which means they're going to have at least 3 of their main rotation players on the floor, even at the end of games in blowouts. And we saw that with like who they had Moses, Pods, Melton played a fair bit in the fourth, I think. GP2 played a little bit to close the game as well. Like they're going to be able, like not only are these games blowouts, I think we saw in this one, like normally you'd have, you know, a 30-point lead and it might stay around there because, you know, the end of the bench guys play the end of the bench guys and, you know, it's similar-ish kind of thing. But the Warriors actually have to play main rotation guys as their end of the bench unit, right? And that means that the scoreboard just keeps, the differential just keeps exploding. And the Warriors end up winning this game by 35 when it may have been otherwise, you know, a 25 to 30-point game. Like that's like when you got Brandon Pajemski, Gary Payton II, DeAnthony Melton, Moses, like these guys closing games, even when you're up 25-30, like this is what happens. The scoreboard is just going to get even bigger in terms of the score differential. So I'm not sure if I missed anything there. Spoke about Kuminga, Draymond. We talked about Draymond in the second quarter for a bit where I thought he was going to get ejected and Steve had to kind of waste a timeout, I think, to get Draymond away from the refs and get him to calm down a little bit because he got the first tee and then he kept going. And I was like, Draymond, really? We're in the first half, second quarter of the season opener in Portland. Do you really have to? Like, I can understand meaningful. There's regular season games and there's regular season games. Sometimes you can have really meaningful regular season games against rival teams, nationally televised game, whatever. Like, I can understand, you know, Draymond getting hyped up and getting a bit frustrated in those situations. But season opener in Portland and you're really having a crack at the refs, like, do we need to? Do we really need to do that? And the fact Steve had to waste the timeout to kind of make sure he didn't get ejected, it was funny, but it was also like, come on, like what are you doing? What are you doing? It's the first half of the first game in Portland. What are we doing? And other than that, I thought he was great defensively. I thought classic Draymond Green game defensively, 1 steal, 2 blocks, but that doesn't even, you know, calculate how much of a disruption he was defensively. I thought he was fantastic. 6 rebounds, 3 assists, 3 of 3 shooting, 1 of 1 from 3. Just a Draymond Green game. Just a Draymond Green game. You know, he can certainly play better than that. He can certainly do more stuff. But again, he only plays 20 and a half minutes. So, I mean, his time didn't really allow him to do that. You know, there's going to be games where Draymond's going to need to play 30 minutes and Steve's going to have to rely on him and Steph a lot more than what they did in this one. TJD, I think I have 3 loves from the game from an individual standpoint. And let me know what again, I'll finish this up here soon, but let me know if you had, like, what your top 3 players were for this game. I'm going to put Steph to one side for a second because we know what Steph does, right? He's unbelievably good. And again, even when he's not able to score the ball, it's because teams are throwing multiple guys at him and then he just sets other guys up. Like it's Steph Curry, right? So I'm just going to park him to the side for 1 second, even though he had a near triple-double. Wiggins. I think Wiggins is the big one because that was like a Wiggs all-star season performance. And so I'm not expecting him to be an all-star this season, but do I need to apologize to Steve for his comments on Wiggs being the second leading scorer? Well, based on this game, yes, because Wiggins was fantastic. He would be my number 1. Buddy, the second, 22 points in 15 minutes. Just how effective he looks in Golden State's system, as I spoke about before, in contrast to Philadelphia. And then Trace. I was concerned going into this game about, okay, you got a 7'8" and a 7'2" Klingon. Are those guys going to beat TJD up a little bit? And they just didn't. And not only that, TJD won the battle. And so once that happened, again, that's the difference in the game. Once that happened, once the Portland Bigs couldn't have their way against TJD and prove effective in that battle, then the Warriors shooting was always going to be way too much for Portland, and that proved the case. So Wiggins, Buddy, TJD for me, the three major positives. But I mean, everyone played well. Melton didn't shoot the ball overly well, 4 of 11, 2 of 8. Thought he was good, like defensively excellent. Kyle Anderson didn't do a whole lot, but like, I mean, again, not a box score stuffer by any means, but just does a bit of everything. 5 rebounds, 3 assists, 2 steals, 15 minutes of play. I'm going to be really interested. Just a couple more comments here. I'm going to do Wiggins, Buddy, Melton, top players for the night. Yeah, I'm interested. Wiggins and Buddy, I agree with. Melton, yeah, I mean, he was. I'm just surprised he was like the 10th man used for starters. Like that was a huge surprise. He ends up playing 19 minutes, which is actually one of, in terms of off the bench, Pods played the most, 24. Can we talk about Pods for a second? Just to get off, I'll get back to Melton. Pods goes 0 of 5, 0 of 4. So you think he's the only guy that doesn't score, misses all 5 of his shots, all four from 3-point range, and you think, oh, that's not great. But this guy, it's pretty much a game by game thing where he just always finds a way to finish as the leading guy in plus minus, or at least in the top 2 or 3. And again, like plus 36 in this game, despite the fact that he didn't score. And I'm amazed by his willingness with a broken nose to just continually draw charges, to dive on the ground for loose balls. Like it's really unbelievable. So credit to Pods. And there's a reason why Steve, even though he did not score a single point, there's a reason Steve continues to play Pods for heavy minutes, and he plays 25 minutes. Like he's 8 seconds less than Steph in this one. And they're the top 2 guys in minutes played. There's a reason for that, because Pods just impacts winning, and you constantly see that when you look at when you look at plus minuses in the box score at the end of the game. So Pods a credit, but Melton, yeah, 4 of 11, 2 of 8, didn't shoot the ball overly well, but his defense was excellent. I am interested some of the lineups in the first half where Steve went to that like 4 guard lineup, and then Looney at the 5. I mean, just get rid of the 4 guard lineups. We don't need to see that. Like use Moses a bit earlier, maybe, so you don't like. At least you could say Moses is maybe the power forward, and that gives you a little bit of size, given he's like 6'6". Stop with the 4 guard lineups. Please don't do that. That's a dislike for me from Steve's perspective. But it was also interesting that Melton was used as the primary point guard a little bit in this one when Steph and Pods were off the floor. I don't think it was for too long, maybe like 5 minutes or so, but he was. And I think Steve feels pretty comfortable with having the ball in his hands and allowing him to be the playmaking presence, especially when, I think during that time, Slow-Mo was also on the floor kind of thing. So a couple other things here. Dublin Marsh, love Lindy Waters playing for 5 minutes and dropping 2 threes. Love this new guy. Yeah, I said about him before, like he'd be playing for majority of, 25 of the 30 teams in the league, if not more than that. And yet he's the 13th guy for the Warriors. And I've spoken about it, after his performances in preseason, like he's going to come out in these situations and he's going to drop a couple of threes, and he's probably going to shoot 50% from 3 for the season or something stupid like that. He's going to beat up on the end of the bench guys from the opposition and look amazing, because he is pretty amazing compared to those, compared to other guys that are the 13th guy on the roster. Right. As I've said previously, if there's an award for 13th man of the year in the NBA, Lindy Waters III has it locked up for me. Adam Hurley says, was Draymond acting up again? You think he'll find a way to screw up the season like he did the last 2? Well, acting up. It's just Draymond, isn't it? Like I wouldn't, it's not out of the ordinary. He's got to pick and choose his moments, right? I'm okay with Draymond getting frustrated and not having a go at the rest, but voicing his displeasure. I'm okay with that. I play sport at a club level, right? Local level. It means absolutely nothing in the grand scheme of things. And even I get frustrated at referees and officials. And I won't lie. I've had my fair share of times where I pleasantly go up to the officials and just let them know that was the wrong call and that I heavily disagreed with it. And so who am I to tell Draymond that he can't do that? Like, I think that should be allowed to an extent, but you got to pick and choose your moments, and you can't you shouldn't be putting your team at a disservice when you're in the first half of the season opener in Portland. Like, I just don't think it's not necessary. Not necessary. Again, I mean, you could argue that, oh, well, if he gets ejected in that game, it's probably a good time because the Warriors still win anyway. And maybe that's actually better than, him getting ejected in a close game against a rival team in a big game. Maybe you could argue that. But I think you've just got to pick and choose your moments a little bit better. And I don't think that's the situation where Draymond needs to be acting up, because I would have thought that I think the Warriors were up nearly 10 at that point. I would have thought that you just think to yourself, okay, we've kind of got the game in our control here. The game's being played on our terms. Let's not, this is a fairly easy opposition. If we just keep doing what we're doing, we'll win the game. And that's what happened. Like, the Warriors just kept on doing what they did in the second quarter, and they won the game by 35. But I suppose there was a moment there where Draymond could have put that in jeopardy a little bit. Didn't end up happening. Steve smartly takes the time out, kind of relaxes the situation a little bit. The Warriors come back out and do what they do. But yeah, pick and choose your moments, Draymond. Drew says Steve Kerr has a stressful job. It is going to be, like, this game's not stressful because you end up winning by 35. But the question marks are going to come when you use a 12-man rotation and it doesn't work. And that's bound to happen this season. It's just going to happen. That's when the question marks are going to come. And I'm not saying I dislike a 12-man rotation. You guys might be right. It might be a point of difference for the Warriors compared to every other team, and that could work to their advantage. But I still have my question marks on whether that is sustainable or not. I think I'm going to finish it up there. I'm not sure if I've got any other. I'm just looking at the other scores. One thing I do want to finish on, prayers up to James Wiseman, playing for the Pacers today. First big off the bench with Isaiah Jackson out as a backup to Miles Turner. Really wishing Wise the best. And he goes down with, I don't want to speculate, but it was the classic Achilles injury where he kind of thought he got kicked in the back of the leg kind of thing, and he didn't. He was all by himself. No one was in 5 meters of him. So a bit, disappointing and sad, because I think Indiana might be a good situation for him, playing in that kind of fast-paced, high-tempo style where he can run the floor and try and use his athleticism. And I'm hoping he has a kind of a breakout year in Indiana. It didn't work in Golden State. It didn't work in Detroit. I think the Pacers might be the spot for him. And if if it comes out in the next 12 hours or so that, he's out for the season, or he's torn his Achilles or anything, significant like that, then that's going to be a real disappointment. So, prayers up to him, hopefully that it's nothing serious. Maybe it's like a small calf strain or something, and that he can be back on the floor as soon as possible, because I'm still rooting for that guy. He didn't work out with the Warriors. It's disappointing. It's one of, two things can be true. It can be one of the biggest disasters, one of the biggest mistakes in Golden State history, but you can also want the guy to do well after that, right? And he's never going to live up to the hype of being a second overall pick and what he was supposed to be for the Warriors, but I still want him to do well. Bree CS says, sad what happened to Wiseman. Again, fingers crossed it's okay with him. Cleveland beat Detroit by 30. Cleveland beat Toronto by 30. Indiana beat Detroit by 6. Toronto, that's going to be rough. Milwaukee beat Philadelphia in Philly by 15. No Paul George, no Joel Embiid. Shams reporting that they're already looking into like the load management with Embiid, and the season hasn't even started yet. That's genuinely hilarious. Atlanta beat Brooklyn 120-116. Shout out for those of you that are Australian in the chat. Shout out Dyson Daniels. Huge first up performance for the Atlanta Hawks. So that was fantastic to see. New Orleans, they beat Chicago 123-111, but it sounds like DeJounte Murray has a fractured hand, which is less than ideal for them. I don't want to be a sicko about it, but it's good for the Warriors because they actually have a back-to-back against the Pelicans in Game 4 and Game 5 of the season next week. So the Warriors schedule from here. Jazz will probably enter as heavy favorite. Well, not heavy favorites, but in fact, who won that game? Yes, Memphis beat Utah by 2 today. That was a close game. Utah won't be a pushover like Portland, I don't think. Although I didn't think Portland was going to be a pushover today, and it turns out they were. But yes, Jazz on Friday, and then home for the home opener against the Clippers without Kawhi Leonard. Clippers take the Suns to overtime and lose 116-113 at home today. And then the Warriors have back-to-back games against the Pelicans at Chase Center as well. So with that Murray injury, Zion was out with illness today, but I'm assuming he'll be back for those two Warriors games. Still, based on how they played today, I'm assuming the Warriors will probably enter the next 4 games at least as favorites. Assuming their form, assuming they beat the Jazz and, well, I mean, I'm making assumptions here, but based on what we saw today, I'd imagine at this stage that the Warriors would be favorites for the next 4 games. So the Warriors have a big opportunity here. I think they should be starting the season 5-0. I do think they should be starting the season 5-0 based on how they've played in this game, based on how they played in preseason, based on who they're coming up against. 5-0 should be their record. But it needs to be at least 4-1 because then they go on a 5-game road trip, which I think closes with Boston, going to be heavy underdogs. Cleveland, tough, very tough, probably going to be underdogs. Oklahoma City, very tough, probably going to be underdogs. They're 3 straight games on the road, which you could easily say if the Warriors win one of those games, I think that's a good result. But I'm projecting way too forward here. Brody says 82-0 in championship floor, 6 Pete ceiling. Yeah. I mean, let's finish it off there because you can't get anything more positive, more optimistic than that. Unbelievable performance from the Warriors. I'll give it, we're at 50 and a half minutes here. I thought it might go for 30, but I mean, there's just so many aspects to be taken from this game when 12 guys play between 15 and 25 minutes. It's pretty crazy. So many elements to be taken from it. I'll give it another minute. Just looking at other scores around the association, Charlotte beat Houston, which is a good result for the Warriors because I'm looking at, it's going to be so tough in the Western Conference this season. And whenever a Western Conference rival like the Rockets, who I expect to be in the play-in mix this season, whenever they lose a game to a team in the East who you think is going to be pretty bad, like the Charlotte Hornets, that's a good result for the Warriors. Probably would have been nice if Utah actually beat Memphis, but that doesn't end up happening. I think Lowry had a big game. I mean, if the Warriors lost this game to Portland and Markkanen went to, I'm just going to check what did Markkanen do? I mean, I shouldn't really be checking this. Warriors just won by 35. There's no real reason for me to check this. I don't think I've done a podcast since that report actually came out about the Warriors not only like looking for Paul George and Larry Markkanen separately, but like actually wanting to add both of them during the offseason, which would have been hectic. They wouldn't have had the 12-man rotation. They wouldn't have had the depth they have now if they'd acquired both players. But can you imagine if the Warriors entered this season with Steph, Dre, Paul George, and Larry Markkanen? That would have been interesting. Markkanen goes 9 of 15, 4 of 7, 9 rebounds, and finishes with 35 points and a plus 16 and a 2-point loss in 35 minutes. So the Jazz, those non-Larry Markkanen minutes, that's going to be their issue, obviously, all season. It certainly proved the case in their season opener against the Memphis Grizzlies, who get 27 points out of Santi Aldama, 24 from Desmond Bane, 22 and 10 assists from Ja Morant. Zach Edey, just 14 minutes, 44 seconds, fouled out in his debut. Just I'm going to have to go and have a look at that one back. Brody says, what a way to start the season. I've been listening to you and Athletic Alchemy this whole off season, waiting for the Dubs to start back up. Yeah, hopefully the support can continue. I think it's, the support's fantastic, especially when the Warriors get a big win like they did in this one, and when you can talk positively about them. Now, there's going to be stages at this season where, it's a little bit more disappointing and you have to talk a little bit more negatively about the team. Hopefully you guys can keep the support up for that, because I know myself as a fan, like, I think it's only, yes, you want to be, fully supportive of the team throughout all situations and environments, but I think it's only natural as fans. We want to hear more about the team. We're looking forward to hearing stuff about the team so much more when the team is winning and there's good vibes and positive stuff going around. And I think it's only natural for fans to tune out a little bit more when there's some disappointing stuff going on and, there's a couple of losses pile up. So other than that, guys, we are nearly 54 minutes in. I'll finish up there. The other thing as well that I should mention, give a plug to, is that Golden State with Mates is now on Instagram and TikTok. So you can check us out there. I'll be posting some clips from this live stream. I've got a mate helping me out as well with it. We'll post some clips from this live stream, post clips from other podcast episodes, a few other clips that might be only on Instagram and TikTok as well, and not actually on this YouTube channel or on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, which I'll put the live stream up on there as well. So if you guys are listening to this after the fact, then thank you very much for tuning in. But for those of you that have joined in the YouTube live stream, and especially for those of you that have provided your comments, thank you so much. Friday's game against, who did I say we're playing? The Utah Jazz. It's actually, I mean, I shouldn't say it's getting late because it's so much later in America. It's nearly 11 p.m. I think Pacific time. It's nearly 5 p.m. My time here in Australia. So it's getting a little bit late, and I'm getting a little bit tired. But Friday's game against the Jazz. That's what I was on about. We probably won't be able to do a live stream for that one, unfortunately, as much as I'd love to. Got a lunch going on, so that game's on Saturday afternoon, my time here in Australia. Got a lunch on for my old man's birthday. It's actually his birthday today, or is his birthday. His heavenly birthday, passed away last year. He's 79, would have been 79 today. So bit of an emotional day. Dad's second birthday, where he hasn't been with us, and it's fantastic that the Warriors have been able to brighten up the day a little bit with a 35-point win, and that's exactly how Dad would have wanted it. He was a bit of a Warriors fan towards the end of his life when I was, kind of really getting into it. So he would have loved it, no doubt. He loved nothing more than sitting down on the couch in front of the TV with a drink and watching his favorite sporting teams. My sporting love, sporting passion was inspired by him. So I have to give him full credit, and I'm sure he was looking down today, really happy and excited with the way the Warriors played. So I'll finish it up on that again, because of the lunch on Saturday that we're doing to kind of commemorate his birthday. Probably won't be able to do a live stream, but I'll certainly have a podcast episode after that game. And I might even have, depending on anything that comes out in the next 24 hours or so, I might even have a podcast at a similar time, this time tomorrow, that gets published as well. But other than that, guys, thank you very much for the support. If you haven't subscribed to the YouTube channel already, that would be greatly appreciated. As I said, Instagram, TikTok, Golden State with Mates, myself on Twitter /X at POK252. That's POK252. Thanks again, and we'll see you either in the next live stream or on the next podcast episode.